I basically saw this
A
title.
wealthy
Damn.
Goddamn. Wife falls for a treble stepson when husband is not around.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Wife falls for stepson. Wait. Sorry, okay, let me keep it real. Keep it serious. Wife falls in love for treble stepson when husband's not around. Let's watch it
A
together.
wealthy and successful lawyer finds herself in deep trouble after she gets into a forbidden affair with her stepson.
Stop it. Get some help.
It's been 7 seconds. Reload that.
A wealthy and successful lawyer finds herself in deep trouble after she gets into a forbidden affair with her stepson. One morning, Anne goes home to change into her work clothes when she sees her husband Pierre.
Of course, it's called Pierre.
Oh, Pierre, you want to come out here?
Pierre quickly informs her that his ex-wife Rebecca has called him about their son Theo, who received a 2-day suspension after getting into an argument with his math teacher.
Oh,
Because of this,
damn. It's always the math teachers, you know what I mean?
Pierre has to leave
They have a
for
lot of
Genova
fucking
to fetch
problems.
Theo since he wants his son.
Stop it. Get some help.
That's a bad joke. You get what I mean?
Initial days of Theo's
He looks so down, bro. He looks like he's fucking 17.
Andrew, are you
18
excited for
max.
pre-kindergarten?
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
day, Anne is annoyed at his sloppiness and laziness as he often leaves the house messy. But despite this, Anne observes that Theo has a good relationship with his stepsisters Angela and Serena. This is evident
Aw,
when the two girls
what a cute
excitedly give
family.
Theo a gift. A
Little do you
handmade
know, the mom's
keychain.
gonna
In
fuck you,
gratitude,
though.
Theo compliments
Damn.
too. The following
Aw,
day,
that's so
Anne goes home
sweet.
from work when she notices the keychain on the driveway. She stalls for a bit, confused about why it's there, but she still puts it in her bag. Once inside her daughter's room, she's delighted to see how Theo's not shy in showing affection toward the children, and even
Aw.
complies with their wishes as they bond.
Cute.
However, when he
That's so
notices
cute.
Anne's presence, Theo abruptly gets up and leaves the room. That night, Pierre arrives home from work exhausted and infuriated. As he eats his dinner, he releases his frustration by sharing his troubles at work. Anne diligently
Aw.
listens to her husband, but she entices him to make love to improve his night. Inside the couple's room, Pierre
Wait.
slowly
So they're gonna like, just like that? Like, oh no, honey, you had a bad day. Let's just go and sleep together, you know what I mean?
I am the one, the way you're trying to.
probes himself, but
You
as
know,
he does so, he shares his
it's quite
doubts
weird.
and by Teo's
Are
previous
they
remarks to him,
NPCs or
which
something?
emphasize his aging self. According to Teo, Pierre adopted Angela and Serena to ease his conscience for being an absent father to him. Furthermore, with Pierre's age, Teo thinks he could be the girl's grandfather. Though Pierre thinks
Oh.
Teo is mean, Anne thinks otherwise. She opines that since Teo is good with the children, it's one of his redeeming qualities. Upon hearing this, Pierre becomes silent but initiates
Can we talk about the fact that they're talking about the kids while they're about to...
Stop it. Get some
Can we talk about that real quick? Because they're about to, you know, they're about to do the dirty, right? And they're talking about the kids. It's so
becoming
wrong.
intimate with Anne. After the deed, Pierre feels vulnerable about his age, so he seeks reassurance from Anne. To appease him, Anne reminds him that she's attracted to older men as she thinks they're more desirable. With her words, Pierre smiles in relief.
I mean,
the
they
next
look
day,
like kind
Pierre
of the
visits
same
Theo's
age,
room
right? The
and
mom and
softly
him.
reprimands him not to smoke indoors. Unenthusiastically,
Wait, if he's smoking, maybe I was wrong. Because he looks like he's 18, but maybe he's not.
Theo
Could
obeys,
be my,
but Pierre
you know?
proceeds to enter his room to have a serious conversation with him. Pierre reminds him of the hospitality they've provided him. Therefore, he hopes that Theo will reciprocate their gesture. Half-heartedly, Theo tells him he will and requests his father to leave him as he's busy on his phone. With his attitude,
Oh.
Pierre asks him what he's busy with, and Theo replies that he's working. Since Pierre is skeptical, he further inquires about his work, but Theo evades his question. Because of this, Pierre expresses his doubt about his work and confronts him for being a freeloader. Pierre's word reaches Theo,
Oh,
but he
no.
remains uninterested in addressing his
texting me,
parasitic
by the
lifestyle.
way?
Therefore, Pierre tries to take away his phone, leading Theo to lash out at him. Hurt by Theo's
Oh,
disrespect,
God.
Pierre returns his phone and leaves the room. Shortly after this, Anne and her friend Mimi arrive at the house and find it in
Oh.
complete
Of course, called Mimi.
disarray. Immediately, she contacts Pierre and informs
Who sits like that? This is so unreal. These people had to be NPCs. Like, who sits like that? It's so perfect.
that their house was robbed. While she's on the phone, Teo nonchalantly appears and asks her about what happened. Anne supplies him with the necessary answers and quickly orders him to check for missing items in his room.
Oh
Once
God,
Teo
they got
leaves, Mimi can't
someone
help but
broke
comment
down
that
and
she
they
finds the boy
stole
kind.
stuff?
Anne tells her that Teo treats her like she doesn't exist, but she's fine about it for now. The following day, Anne delivers good news to her client Sarah and her father, Mr. Evrar. According to her, the court has allowed Sarah to be in his custody. In gratitude,
Aw, that's
the man
so
tries to shake
sweet.
Anne's hand, but
Bro, the
accidentally knocks over
papers,
her
what the
cup of coffee,
fuck?
soaking her papers and skirt. Mr. Evrar becomes apologetic,
skirt too?
but Anne assures him it's alright.
Okay.
After wiping off
You know
the
where this
news
is
and
going.
reminds them not to waste the chance the court has granted them. Later that day, Anne changes out of her soiled clothes when she discovers the keychain on Teo's pants. She's confused to see it as she has kept it in her bag and has yet to return it to him. Moreover, her bag went missing after the house burglary, which makes her even more suspicious. Due to this, Anne confronts him, but Teo acts nonchalantly. Left with no
Oh.
choice,
Oh, so maybe he basically was with the people that stole stuff or something. They told the, I don't know.
Anne
What?
becomes
Wait,
frank
wait,
with
wait,
him
wait.
and
I'm
interrogates him
curious
about
now.
how the
What's going
keychain ended
on?
up in his pocket. Instead of answering, Teo expresses his displeasure for Anne's snooping. Regardless of that, Anne is keen on getting an answer from him, so she continues to press him for an explanation. Teo remains
Okay.
stubborn and doesn't show any remorse about the burglary that happened in their residence. Therefore, Anne threatens him that she'll tell Pierre about his behavior.
I feel like he has something to do with it. Like it has to do something with the burglary. Like it has
But
to.
Teo doesn't care. He even challenges her to call the police on
Why
him,
is he
sensing that
looking
Teo
at
will not
her?
relent,
Like,
and
he's
bargains with
keeping
him by
eye
saying that she won't
contact with
inform Pierre
her.
about Teo's actions. But in exchange, he has to integrate himself with the family. Then
Why
Anne
is
will
he
observe if he'll
keeping eye
fulfill his part.
contact with
Just
her?
after their
They're too
negotiation,
close. They're
Teo
about to
begins to
kiss,
come out of
bro.
his shell and breaks his
Oh, never
reserved
mind.
personality.
No?
Upon seeing Anne struggle to grab her daughter's swimming gear, Teo quickly helps her, earning his stepmother's gratitude. He asks her what the gear's for, and Anne answers she'll go swimming with her children. Now that she's mentioned it, Anne invites him to accompany them, and he gladly accepts. During their outing, Teo notices that Anne has yet to join them in the river, so he invites her. Anne refuses, telling him that she's still not in the mood. Playfully, Teo reiterates her words about
Oh, he has a
integrating into the
tattoo.
family,
Yeah, I was wrong. Oh, he would be younger than 18. I was completely wrong. He has a tattoo, so I'm
earning a
guessing
smile from her.
two
Before he can further
tattoos,
invite
actually.
her, the girls order Teo to return to the water, which he quickly complies. Not wanting to miss the fun they're having, Anne quickly gets up and decides to join them. The following day, Anne
Aw,
hangs out
family
with Teo on the
family.
patio, and she begins a conversation with him by asking if he misses Genova. Teo tells her he doesn't as he hates the place and the people there. To make him more comfortable, Anne encourages him to bring his friends into the house, but Teo answers that he doesn't have any. Anne shares that neither does she, causing them to share a laugh. Moving on, Anne notices Teo's tattoo on his forearm and asks him where he's gotten it. He proudly tells her he's tattooed himself and offers to give her one. However, Anne refuses as she's afraid of the possible pain. Suddenly,
Oh.
Teo grabs her arm and touches the part where he plans to put the tattoo. When
Hold
Anne
up.
continues
Wait
to
a minute.
refuse, Teo
Something
teasingly
ain't right.
pushes his touch near the bend of her elbows. Anne quickly takes her arm
So what the fuck? He's just tickling her arm, and that's why they're gonna have. Okay,
but Teo tells her a tattoo at the said spot will be classy. After persistently offering to tattoo her, Anne finally relents, and Teo begins their session. Despite the pain, Anne finds herself having fun in
Stop. She
Teo's
says you're
company.
gonna let him
One
do
night, while
it?
Anne's busy with work, she hears Teo's voice alongside a feminine one. The two come across her, so Teo introduces Amanda to her.
Damn.
Once the greetings are exchanged, Teo quickly brings Amanda to his room, leaving Anne uneasy.
Amanda
a few days
is-
later, Anne ditches the gathering with her guests
Wow.
as she finds
Beautiful.
it boring. As she lounges at the stairs, she sees Teo preparing to buy a pack of cigarettes. Teo invites her to accompany him and she agrees. Moments later,
Oh,
the two
no.
head to a bar and share a drink.
Oh,
Fueled with
no, she
alcohol,
got-
Anne can't help but bring up Amanda in their conversation. She asks him if the girl's his girlfriend, but Teo denies it. For him, Amanda's just a conquest, and they've agreed to such a relationship. Now curious, Teo asks Anne if her relationship with his father is true love. Instead of answering, Anne reveals that when she was young, she felt nauseous whenever her mother shared stories of her escapades with men. This leads
Oh,
Teo to
God.
ask if her mother has plenty of men, and Anne confirms. This time, Teo shifts the
This is
topic to
so
her,
weird.
asking if she's also
I get it. You can be friendly with your stepson, and I get it. I understand that, but you just can't be in an I
also
just
been involved with numerous men. However,
just
Anne
so
evades the
weird.
question and downs her drink. Teo suddenly receives a text, so he informs her that he has to leave. Curious, Anne inquires if Amanda sent him the text, but Teo playfully evades her question. Shortly after, Anne returns home in a chipper mood, whereas Pierre is worried sick about her. Pierre asks her where she's
Oh,
been, but
God.
Anne lies about going for a walk. This disappoints Pierre.
Why would you say you're going for a walk? You're wearing a white dress. So you wear that to go to a walk? That's crazy. Like, I don't think
Especially
that's
since they
a
have a company
thing.
to entertain earlier. He
It's
adds that he finds her
crazy.
sudden
Like, who would have
disappearance
believed you?
disrespectful.
If I was a husband, I would think that she was cheating on
I am
him.
the one.
And he is also concerned about his age. That's why he needed reassurance the other day, right? What you were like doing the D. So he's just gonna think that you were outside cheating on him.
To their guests,
Which you
so
wear
he
with
chastises
his
her
own
to behave
stepson,
normally.
by the way.
Despite his words,
Kind of.
Anne remains unaffected, and instead, she voices out that everything in their gathering is boring. Therefore, she hopes
Oh.
Pierre won't turn into one as she thinks it doesn't suit him. The following evening, Teo watches a television series on his phone when Anne visits his room. Due to this,
How would you go and visit your...
he invites
not
her to
gonna say
watch the
anything,
series with
actually.
him, which the woman gladly accepts. While they're watching, tension rises between them, so Teo initiates kissing Anne, leading her
Please,
to
no! No!
Pardon?
make love. Once her afterglow fades, Anne's series on his phone when Anne visits
Sorry?
his room. Due to this, he invites her to watch
What?
the series with him, which the woman gladly accepts. While they're watching, tension rises between them, so Teo
You're kidding. You're kidding.
initiates
joking.
kissing
That's
Anne,
not true.
leading them to make love. Once her afterglow fades, Anne's conscience haunts her. Therefore, she orders Teo to forget what happened and never do it again. However, Teo doesn't assure her as he asks her if she's enjoyed the deed.
Stop it. Get some help.
Though against her better judgment, Anne affirms but expresses her regret. Teo calms her down and even playfully teases her, but Anne remains
No, bro,
unamused.
that's so
As a
fucked
result,
up.
Teo tells her she's irritating, causing her to leave his room. The next few days after their intimacy, Teo hangs out with his stepsisters in their backyard. Afterward, he approaches Anne, who's lounging in the sun, and offers
Oh,
her a beer. When
no.
Anne accepts it, Teo drops beside her and
Just look at that. Like, just... That's so wrong.
interviews her using
Please.
a dictaphone. At first, Teo's questions start innocently, leaning on getting to know her better. But as the interview progresses, Teo begins to ask Anne a suggestive question. He presses her on who was her first time, but Anne feels uncomfortable with it, so she refuses to answer. Because of
This is doomed.
this, Teo wonders why she can't answer his question. Therefore, Anne frankly
It's doomed. It's fucking
He
doomed.
tells him something shouldn't have happened. Now bothered, Teo asks if she's pertaining to their relationship, but Anne makes him feel disappointed as she denies what's happened between them. Still, Teo
Oh,
stubbornly
God.
believes they're in a relationship, and he kisses her. Once again, he asks her about her first time,
My God. Kissing her in the middle of the garden. The husband can come in. The girls are there. That's crazy.
Anne still refuses. With her reaction, Teo kisses her as an apology. The following day, Anne visits Sarah as she's been unreachable for the past few days. She expresses her worry
crazy.
to her, but the girl acts differently, rousing Anne's suspicions. Suddenly, they hear her father's voice from Sarah's house, and Anne notices that her demeanor changes. Therefore, Anne invites Sarah to walk outside, hoping it'll make the girl open up to her.
happened
However,
to
Sarah
Sarah?
refuses and tells her to leave. Once outside, Anne contacts the Child Protection Service and requests for Sarah's case file. On Serena's birthday, Teo helps Anne prepare the tables when he becomes touchy with her. Since he's showing her affection in front of her daughters,
Oh,
Anne breaks
no.
free from him and chastises his behavior.
Oh,
During the
no.
party, Serena
Oh,
approaches
no.
Anne and requests
Oh,
her to
no.
fill her water gun. Immediately, Anne complies and she heads to their shed.
Oh,
As she fills
no.
the pail with water, Teo creeps up behind her and hugs her despite the woman's protest. Still, Teo's persistent, making Anne lose focus and eventually give
Oh,
in.
no.
Unbeknownst to them,
You're gonna get caught.
Mimi's outside and she's witnessed their affair. In disappointment,
God.
Mimi walks
Poor
out, but
Kay.
Anne tries to stop her. Regardless of her words, Mimi is determined to leave. The following day,
Oh,
Teo meets
no.
Anne in their garden where he receives an earful from the woman due to his behavior yesterday. Then, she reminds him to keep it
Mimi
a secret
caught
to
them,
protect their
bro.
family's reputation. Though crestfallen, Teo gives his promise to Anne, much to her
That's
relief.
crazy.
Afterward, Teo asks her if she's dumping him, and she confirms. For her, their
The fact that you have to say that you're dumping your stepson It's concerning me right now.
Affair must end, especially since he has his life ahead of him. Realizing their affair will end, Teo requests Anne for a goodbye kiss. Luke grants his
No, they're gonna
wish,
get
and
caught.
after a moment, Teo bids her farewell. While heading to the house, he suddenly shouts at Anne, still resenting their separation. He declares that she'll be
God,
envious of all
bro.
his girlfriends, and there she'll realize that he doesn't need her anymore. The next morning, Anne joins Pierre for breakfast when the man informs her he's taken a week off to bond with Teo. This rattles Anne as she's afraid
Oh.
Pierre might discover their affair. Still, Anne
Oh,
plays it cool
God.
and agrees it might be a good idea to mend their relationship. While the two are talking, Teo watches them through the window. Later that evening, Anne's
That was so sneaky. Like, do you think we don't see you, little boy? Like, look at him.
While the two were
He's just
talking,
flexing,
Teo watches
just
them through the
spying them.
window.
The
Later
fuck?
that evening, Anne snoops into Teo's nightstand and grabs his dictaphone. She tries to find the tape that contains their conversation about their affair, hoping to get rid of it. Once she finds the
Oh,
tape, she
God.
quickly takes it and leaves. The next day, Anne drops off her daughters to their horseback riding activity
What type of rich ass people? Look at the car and also, like, horse riding. What
agitated.
the
Afterward,
hell?
she drives home, but her phone rings, so she
Damn.
tries to find her
I
phone.
wish that was
This
me,
causes her
bro.
to
What
get
the hell?
distracted and accidentally crash her car. Due
Oh,
to this,
fuck.
Anne has no choice but to go home with her daughters using a cab. The three are surprised that Pierre's car is already in the driveway.
I mean, that's
Immediately,
okay,
Anne's
right?
daughters rush to their father, and they tell him about their mother's accident. Despite the information about the accident, Pierre isn't worried about it. After some time,
So your wife has an accident, you're not worried about it.
Anne serves
Okay.
her family dinner, but she wonders about
I mean, fair enough, because she has, you know, she's been having an affair with your son, so like,
Teo's
fair enough.
whereabouts. Pierre informs her that Teo won't join them, causing Anne to assume he's with Amanda. When he hears her answer, Pierre confirms that Teo's indeed with her, but he gives Anne a pointed look. During the meal, Pierre
Oh,
shares that they
God.
encountered
He
mice on their
knows.
trip. However, Pierre's story is not typical, as it hints at Anne's infidelity. According to him, mice are trouble as they keep on reproducing. Hence, they
no.
must be taken care of. Upon
Oh, no,
hearing
he
this,
knows.
Anne becomes quiet, catching
He
Pierre's
knows.
attention. He asks why she's not eating, so Anne answers she has no appetite. By evening, Pierre initiates a
knows.
conversation with Anne, revealing that Teo has confessed to their affair. Anne remains quiet, but when
Oh
Pierre
my
provokes her
God.
into telling her side, she tries to save her face. Instead of telling the truth, Anne calls Teo miserable and frames him as a liar. Now troubled, Pierre admits that at first he doesn't know what to believe, but with
That's
Teo's story,
crazy.
he wonders why he tells something like that if it isn't true. Anne reasons that Teo fabricated
she's
the story for
saying
attention,
that it's
and
not
it's unusual
true.
for her to get involved with him since he's a teen. Regardless of her alibis,
That's
Pierre doesn't believe her as
disgusting.
Teo's actually told their affair in great detail. Angered, Anne walks out, but
That's
she begins
insane.
to rub in Pierre's face all of the effort she's exerted just to make Teo feel comfortable in their family. When she reaches
That's
their room,
insane.
Anne quickly grabs a bag
So she's basically blaming him. Nah. Also, he's a teen. He doesn't really think.
and proceeds to pack her
To be
things.
honest.
Pierre becomes more
Respectfully.
unsettled, so he tries to stop her. However, Anne doesn't listen, and instead, she guilt trips him into thinking that Teo disclosed their supposed affair to him as payback for abandoning him. Pierre
That's
pleads with her
crazy.
not to leave and expresses that he
So
feels
she's
troubled about who
gaslighting,
to
like,
believe.
what
Taking the
the
chance,
hell?
Anne says his son is a monster and deems him the culprit for their house's burglary incident. She further takes
That's
Pierre's sympathy by
insane.
saying that she didn't tell him about Teo's deviance because she wants to give him a second chance and prevent hurting their
What?
relationship. Before
Nah,
ending
she
her
got
thoughts, she tells him that
fucked
Teo's
up.
doing all this so that Pierre will reject Anne and he can finally have his father back. Furthermore, she calls
insane.
Pierre naive for being manipulated easily. Now, Pierre is afraid of
I'm not going to lie. She's a psychopath. Bro.
losing his wife. Therefore,
She's
he tearfully hugs
gaslighting
and
him
kisses
so
her.
hard
The next
and
morning,
lying.
Pierre summons Teo into their living room,
He's
and he
lying
reprimands
so
him for
hard.
accusing Anne of having an affair with him, feeling summoned of losing his wife.
She's
Therefore,
lying
he tearfully
so
hugs
hard
and kisses
right
her.
now.
The next morning, Pierre summons
Poor
Teo
guy,
into their
though.
living room, and he reprimands him for accusing Anne of having an affair with him. Feeling betrayed, Teo stalls and looks at Anne, who looks remorseless. Then, he tells his father that he didn't lie and urges Anne to tell their story herself. However, Pierre
Oh my
orders him to
God.
apologize to his wife. Confidently, Anne tells Pierre not to worry for her, and she proceeds to scold Teo as if he's a troubled child who only seeks attention. This hurts
That's
Teo, causing him
crazy.
to call the two crazy. Once again, Pierre orders him to admit that he lied, unaware of how much this breaks Teo's heart. Anne approaches Teo and gently urges him
that's
to
so
admit that
rude.
he's
Like,
lied,
that's
a
just
farce
so
that makes her
fucked
look like
up.
a saint. Instead of complying, Teo abruptly leaves. Moments
That's
later,
so
Teo's
rude.
packed and ready to leave, but his sisters don't want him to. Since everything's out of his control, Teo
Aw.
tightly hugs them as a farewell. Inside Anne's workplace, her coworker alerts her about Teo's presence. She summons him to her office, and
What
they
the
talk
fuck?
about the event earlier. Teo threatens to press charges against Anne if she doesn't tell Pierre the truth. Despite
Okay,
his
that's
threats,
good.
Anne doesn't comply as she is confident that their condition doesn't necessarily equate to a crime. Moreover, she believes that no one will believe Teo as he has no
I mean, it's
proof
not a
of their
crime,
affair.
but still
Therefore, she
fucked
suggests
up.
he just tell Pierre that he lied. Realizing that his effort will be fruitless, Teo leaves her office with a stomp on his feet. After a few days, Anne attends a meeting with Teo's lawyer, wherein the boy presses
How rich are you, little kid? He has a lawyer? He has a fucking lawyer. How rich are you? What? W him though, I'm not gonna lie, but like what?
charges against her. Anne
What the
tries to
hell?
appeal using her connections with the lawyer, but he doesn't relent. Left with no choice, Anne accepts the lawyer's proposal and gets up. Before she leaves, she bids a shaken Teo farewell. Later that evening, Anne hears a loud thudding noise downstairs, so she
What's-
gets up to check on it. Once
So-
downstairs, she sees a drunk Teo persistently banging on the door.
Oh no,
She asks
he's
him why he's in
drunk.
their residence, so Teo says he wants to see her. Confused, Anne reminds him they have a deal, but he refuses to acknowledge it. Fueled with desire,
What
Teo
the
kisses
hell?
Anne, but she
Desire?
tries to push him away. Still, Teo's influence on her is too strong, so she eventually gives in to him. After their moment of intimacy, Anne
Oh, hell no!
What? Go back.
before she leaves, loud thudding
So
noise
you're
downstairs,
telling me
so
that
she gets
they,
up to
like-
check on it. Once
like,
downstairs,
down
she
there
sees
with
a
the
drunk
dad
Teo
sleeping in the
persistently
bed?
banging on the door. She asks him why he's in their residence.
They
so
did
Teo
the
says
deed
he wants to see her.
outside.
Confused, Anne reminds him they have a deal, but he refuses to acknowledge it. Fueled with desire, Teo kisses Anne, but she tries to push him away.
So you're
Still,
telling me
Teo's
that they
influence on
are,
her is too
like,
strong, so she eventually
about to
gives
do
in
it
to him. After
outside
their
with the
moment of
dad in the bed
intimacy, Anne returns to
sleeping.
their room, and a sleepy Pierre asks her what the commotion's about. Anne lies that a drunk Teo visited them and she called a cab for him. Pierre notices
That's
she's
crazy.
cold, so Anne hugs him and buries her face on his neck. Then, she calls out Pierre's name, but her husband shushes her, urging her to go back to sleep.
That's
Subscribe to watch
insane.
more videos.
That's insane. I am not even gonna lie. I'm not. What happened was like, what? You cannot leave me like this. Where's the rest? What happened? Did he found out? Did he like call the cops? Did he? What the hell? Are they gonna live forever happy? Like, what the hell? I wanna know. Is there a part 2 of this? Because there's no way. Where's the rest? I want to know. Thank you for watching and subscribe if you want. I'll be back tomorrow reacting to other things, wherever. But that's so fucked up. I'm really mad. I would actually still highly recommend you to subscribe to this channel, but I am so upset that there's no part 2. Oh my god, I am so mad actually. I hope you have a good day.